Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for a week of August 26th. We're going to talk about not only a wobbly, but a great artist, a great poet, the one and only Carlos Cortéz. And the way this is coming about is there was recently an event in memory of Carlos Cortéz, and I thought it would be important to talk about it. And a guy who came to mind was my old friend Carlos Cumpián, who's been a guest on the show before. We go way back. I remember him walking into the Rising Up Angry office on Lincoln Avenue above the Body Politic Theater in 1969. First time I ever met him. Good morning to you, or good afternoon to you, Carlos.
Hey, good afternoon, todos, escuchando our program, listening to the program. Thank you so much, and I'm glad that I'm able to get on this with you. Absolutely right. Carlos Cortéz was an influence in my life way back, not in 1969. I met you before I met Carlos Cortéz. I met Carlos Cortéz in 1970. Yes, in 1970, I met him. And I had just moved up. I decided to get up out of the South Side where I was living and moved to an area right behind DePaul University at the corner of Clifton and Belden. A buddy of mine said, I need a roommate, come on and stay with us. And so, yeah, I was able to go there, live there. And one October evening, who comes alongside me, sees me unlocking the door, is this man in this putty-colored hat with a bunch of buttons on it. And I kind of look at the guy, and he says to me, excuse me, you live here? And that kind of frightened me for a second because it was kind of dark, and I never met the guy, and he's looking at me, and he says, are you a skin? And I said, I had, my hair in braids, and I had a beaded jacket on, and stuff about AIM and stuff. And he goes, are you a skin? I thought, oh, this guy's a cop. He wants that. Why is he asking me this question for? And he says, what's that mean? He goes, like an Indian. I said, oh, well, I'm a Chicano, Tejano from, my people are mixed, And he goes, oh, yeah, you live here? I go, yeah, okay. And he goes, oh, so do I. I live around the corner. So I said, wait a second. What's your name? He goes, Carlos. I said, that's my name. And so he called me a tocayo, a namesake. And at that moment, I recognized him as a kindred spirit. And he said, well, look, come around sometime. I live in the apartment, ring the bell, come up, and I'll get you a beer. Can you drink? Do you drink? I said, well, occasionally here and there. And so here's the thing, though, Michael, here's the thing. I had actually had a meeting of the minds with Carlos Cortéz before I physically met him, because I went to the old Guild books, and I found this anthology there. I was recommended this anthology called Poets of Today, a new American anthology edited by Walter Lowenfels. What's it like to be alive in the US of A, in the world today, post-Hiroshima? What's it like to be alive after Nagasaki, Hiroshima? 85 living poets lived to tell it through their poetry. And there was the people like you probably have heard of, everybody's heard of, the Gregory Corso and the Charles Bukowskis. There's even Bob Dylan in here. There's Gary Snyder.
Ferlinghetti, Coney Island of the Mind guy.
Coney Island, Ferlinghetti, all these giants in there, and nestled among them is this guy called Carlos Cortéz. So I was like, and it turns out that what was in there, Michael, wasn't so much just a poem, but it was actually a song, and it was in the Little Red Songbook that the Industrial Workers of the World, IWW, would publish, and it was in there first, and then he got it accepted into this anthology. So there we have it. How I first met him was through reading his work, and lo and behold, as they say, I was shocked to discover the man who just greeted me, and later on I go up for coffee and I meet his lovely wife, and he asked me about my work and what I'm doing, this, that, and the other, and then I noticed he had artwork, and a lot of people know Carlos Cortéz predominantly for his ability for artwork, and he did a lot of stuff that was based off the Guadalupe Posada Skeleton, the Katrina, the stuff that you've seen. He did stuff for many different publications, different books and book covers. So, Carlos Cortéz is predominantly known as like the poster graphic artist. He did some mural work, and but predominantly again graphic work. Now,
Carlos, let me jump in here for a second.
Please do.
You were at this event at the Mexican Museum of Fine Art.
Right. You're combining it. It's called the National Museum of Mexican Art. And I was at that event because that's this event that was just held on Sunday, the 13th of August, which would have marked the 100th birthday of Carlos Cortéz, who was born on August 13th of 1923. And this past Sunday, it would have marked his 100th birthday. But Carlos passed away back in January of 2005 at age 82. And here we are 18 years later, still talking about and still interested in his legacy. And there are many young people, not just us old bastards, who are like, hey, who was this Cortéz guy? And like, yeah, and now they've participated. They're looking at his work, they're looking for his work, looking to understand what his POV, his point of view, and what he represented. So that exhibit, by the way, will be up for free every day except on Monday when they're closed. But it will be open between 10 to 5 or so every day between now and the end of January 2024. So
there's a Carlos Cortéz exhibit at the Mexican National Museum of Mexican Art.
That is correct.
Until January. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that because I need to go down there and check that out. I've got a few, I think I have 3 pieces of his art. I never talked to Carlos that much, but I was around him on a number of occasions, and I did take 2 nice photographs of him, which I assume that we will, for those of you who get to watch this show on CAN TV or on YouTube, will have pictures from Carlos's artwork. What do you attribute the enthusiasm of younger people to their appreciation of Carlos? Where's that coming from?
It's coming from a couple of places. One, because I think a lot of people are realizing, number one, being that he was an anarcho-syndicalist, being that he was a union man, okay, a radical union man, we see, what do we see? We see the people working at Starbucks getting unionized. We see people getting unionized, going for unions in jobs where we didn't think people were going to have unions. And so who's doing some of that union organizing? Are the industrial workers of the world. The Wobblies are going in there and doing that. So some of that is the work of the Wobblies. And in the process, they pick up literature and they go back and they look at stuff and they find that, hey, Carlos Cortéz and Fred Thompson, and there were other people that they remember Fred?
I remember Fred. He was the head of the Wobblies when they used to be above the Assyrian restaurant on Halstead, right there at Lincoln and Halstead.
That's right.
And Fullerton. Yeah, I remember him. Actually, I have his old desk, which was also Big Bill Haywood's desk, and it's in storage. But anyhow, I remember. Wasn't Carlos Cortéz? He was German and Mexican, as I recall.
Well, that's correct.
Born in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's right. So he's a real Milwaukee creation here, where you can. The Germans now, and he came by his radicalism. Let's just say his progressive radicalism, whatever term you want to use. He came by it very naturally because his mom was a member of the Young Socialist group back in the day, and his father was actually an active union organizer for the IWW, and his father worked on the railroads of out west, and his father was multilingual. He knew Spanish because he was from Mexico. He learned Spanish, and then he also learned Italian because a lot of Italians were working out in the West Coast, and he picked up Italian because it's, I guess we know it's similar to Spanish. And so he learned Italian and English. And so somehow the man worked his way over to the Midwest, worked his way up into Milwaukee, and met his wife, and they were married, and it was a marriage of politics and customs and culture, and out popped only one child. Hey, who was that? That was Carlos Alfredo Cortéz, Carlos A. Cortéz. And I understand if you study it, he actually took the name very seriously, Cortéz, and then he was proud of it. But then, of course, he knew that there was a guy named Cortéz who wasn't such a nice guy historically, who in fact attacked the Mexicans and overthrew the Aztec Empire and all of that. In the book, the new book that we've just released, and I want to say that if you look for it on the cover, you'll have to see the word Coyohuicat. Coyohuicat means coyote song in the Mexican language of Nahuatl. And so Carlos took that name, Coyote Song, or the Song of the Coyote. He took that name as a result of having done 2 years in Sandstone Federal Prison during the Second World War as a draft resistor. He did not want to go, and for various reasons, but the main thing, he felt like, why am I getting engaged in killing guys I don't know and fighting other workers? That was his position. And he did say this, though. He said, look, if someone could train me up to go and get Adolf Hitler, I would go. But if you're just going to have me go out and shoot Hans and Kurt and these other German boys, I don't know them. I'm not really interested in killing them. And they said, you're going to jail. He said, let's go. So they put him away.
On his woodcuts or these pieces of art, he's got a singing coyote in the corner with his signature.
That's right.
All
So
the time.
you were trying to show that signature. He uses that coyote and the bubble that comes out of the mouth of the coyote, which is kind of the Aztec way of saying something's speaking, something is speaking, something's talking. And so he did that. So the name Coyohuicat. Huicat means a song, and Coyo is the shortened version of coyote. So he combines that, the coyote song. And the name of the new book, which we released last Sunday, is called Coyote Song, Collected Poems and Selected Art of Carlos Cortéz Coyohuicat. And it was edited by David Ranney and myself. And you probably maybe heard of David Ranney.
I don't know if I have.
You don't know? Okay. David Ranney has written a number of books. Maybe you recognize this name, Living and Dying on the Factory Floor. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I think I have.
Okay. And so he's the author of that book. Anyway.
Carlos, let me ask you to, we're going to run out of time. I want you to tell us one more time where Carlos Cortéz's artwork is showing at the museum, how long, and then tell us a little bit about what you're working on till we run out of time.
Okay, well, first of all, if you make your way to 1852 West 19th Street, 1852 West 19th Street, you will go to the National Museum of Mexican Art, and you can get in. You can leave a donation, but it's free to enter, and you can see the work of Carlos Cortéz and many other artists there. There's a special prints and paintings of his work, rare stuff. It will be near the West Wing. You can go there and check that out. It will be up. Actually, it goes down. The actual date is February 18th. I said to the end of January just to get you in there. But you can go all the way from now, here in August, to February 18th of 2024. Get in there and see his exhibit. That's really important to y'all. And pick up a copy, if you wish, of the Coyote Song, Collected Poems and Selected Art, which is available there. And very few places are carrying his work, but he is an accomplished poet. Some of you remember that he did do a book called Where Are the Voices? And also he did a book called Crystal Gazing, the Amber Fluid, and other wobbly songs, poems rather. And those were done with the Charles H. Kerr crew. And he also did with Marcha Brasso Press. He did a book called De Kansas a Califas and Back to Chicago. And so we can find all those poems and far more that were collected in the Industrial Worker newspaper and in other places like Frog Pond, or even I think the Seed and other places that you wouldn't even know where he got published. We found all of that and put it together in the book. It took us 18 months of labor to really haggle it out and work it through, and finally put it together so that for any of the person that would be curious to see it, to read it.
Well, the last time I was at the National Museum of Mexican Art was an event that was bringing out a new book you have out. So you want to give us a little bit on your last publication?
Well, yeah, thank you for asking. My last publication is my 5th book, actually, and my 5th book is called Human Cicada. Human Cicada.
That's right, yeah.
Human Cicada was a result of how many years? I don't know, 11 years. It took, I called it like a cicada process. So it took about 11 years for me to work it out, to come out with a new book, which I published with the help of a woman who runs a press out of New Mexico. And her name is Odilia Rodriguez, and she runs the Prickly Pear Publishing Company. And she looked at my manuscript, let me run with it. And so that book is available. We're doing well with it. It's actually selling well. It's available and people can find it. It also should be available at the community. It's actually currently available at Community Pilsen Books on 18th Street. It's also available at City Lit Books in Logan Square and at the National Museum of Mexican Art store. So there's not a lot of places carrying it, but if you're in Chicago, those are places. And I think you can find it on, I may dare say, Amazon. So
okay, comrade brother. Carlos Cumpián, thanks for coming on and sharing this information about Carlos Cortéz. The two of you are hell of guys, is all I can say.
All right. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
Hasta luego y buena suerte. Muchas felicidades.
Hasta la vista, cabrón.